You'll Never Be Albert, the letters of Edward VII and Queen Victoria, aka mummy issues so intense they shape the British monarchy. Welcome back to Past People, where monarchs mourn dramatically, children disappoint gloriously, and letters are weaponized emotional grenades. Today's royal showdown? The most emotionally fraught, judgmental, and spiritually exhausting mother-son duo in British history. Queen Victoria and her firstborn son, the future Edward VII, known to his pals as Bertie, but never once called that fondly by his mother. This is the story of a son desperate for approval, a mother permanently in mourning, and a series of letters so cold you'll need to wear gloves to read them. So pour the brandy, grab a cigar, and prepare for a full psychological takedown, because this is Queen Victoria versus Bertie, and the pen was the sword. Edward, known as Bertie, was born in 1841, the long-awaited male heir to the throne. You'd think that would be cause for royal rejoicing, but no. From the moment he arrived, Queen Victoria declared him fat, backward, and not clever like his sister. Thanks, Mum. Prince Albert, Victoria's beloved husband and Victorian-era parenting champion, designed an intensive educational regime to whip Bertie into shape. We're talking 6 hours of study per day, tutors who wrote in Latin for fun, and zero allowance for actual joy. And Bertie struggled. The early letters are heartbreaking. Albert writes, "You must try harder. Your mother and I are deeply concerned at your lack of progress." Victoria writes, "Why must you make me so ashamed? Your future is serious, you are not." Bertie writes back, "I am trying, Mama. I do not wish to fail you." Cue tiny violin music and crushing generational trauma. The scandal that broke everything. Then comes 1861. Bertie is sent to military training in Ireland and, shock horror, has an affair with an actress named Nellie Clifton. Victoria is informed, Albert is dispatched to confront Bertie. Days later, Prince Albert dies. The Queen never forgives her son. She writes, "Your conduct has been the cause of my beloved one's death." Imagine getting that in a handwritten note, in mourning stationery. Bertie, only 20, is devastated. He begs for forgiveness. She replies, "Never speak of this again. The shadow you cast is long." From then on, her letters are cold, distant, and deliberately painful. The heir who could do nothing right. As the years pass, Bertie tries to fulfill his royal duties, but Queen Victoria won't let him do anything useful. She calls him frivolous, untrustworthy, too fond of cards, cigars, and French actresses. Every letter drips with disappointment. Victoria writes, "Your presence at Sandringham is tolerated but not welcome. You do not conduct yourself as a prince should. You shame your poor father's memory." Bertie's letters become shorter, tighter, often beginning with, "Your Majesty," not even "Dear Mama" anymore. She keeps him away from politics, keeps him off councils, keeps him in emotional purgatory. It is the longest and coldest apprenticeship in British history. Marriage, more mistakes, and royal frostbite. Bertie marries Princess Alexandra of Denmark, a beauty, a sweetheart, and soon queen-in-waiting. You'd think this would earn him points. It does not. Victoria writes, "She is pleasing enough, but she will not improve you." Bertie fathers several children, including the future George V, but continues his rakish lifestyle. Cue more letters. "Your habits are offensive. You lower the tone of the monarchy. I fear for the moral future of your children. Do not attend Parliament. You are not fit for public life." He opens a hospital. She criticises the ribbon he wore. He tries diplomacy. She reminds him he's not his father. At this point, Bertie could rescue a kitten from a fire, and Victoria would write back, "I assume you lit the fire yourself." The longest shadow, until the crown falls. Victoria reigns for 63 years. Bertie waits and waits and waits. He becomes the oldest heir in British history, basically watching the throne like it's an inheritance dispute that won't close. In 1890's letters, we see a weariness creep into Bertie's tone. He writes, "I have served without praise. I await the day I may prove useful." Victoria, even in old age, writes, "You must remember you are not king, and I shall be so long as I live." When she finally dies in 1901, Bertie is 59. The nation breathes a sigh of relief, and Bertie, he signs his first proclamation as King Edward VII. And what does he do? He rules brilliantly, a natural diplomat, a modernizer, a man of the people, the exact king his mother said he'd never become. What the letters really tell us. The letters between Bertie and Queen Victoria aren't just royal correspondence, they're a masterclass in emotional manipulation, generational trauma, and British passive aggression. Victoria never forgave Bertie for not being Prince Albert. Bertie never stopped trying to be someone she could love. He was a party prince with the heart of a people's monarch, and a son who lived under a black veil of guilt for 60 years. And in the end, the lesson? You can spend your whole life waiting for approval that never comes. Or you can become king, start smoking in public, and build a whole new era instead. Prince Alfred and Queen Victoria. The other son, the navy, and the neglect. AKA, hello? Mum, it's me, Alfred, still alive, still underappreciated. Welcome back to Past People, where the royal family has more children than sympathy, and emotional validation is always sent by post. Delayed. Today's forgotten prince? Alfred, Duke of Edinburgh, Queen Victoria's second son, lifelong Navy man, and the sibling whose entire vibe was, "Hi, I'm not Bertie, but I also exist." Alfred's life was filled with long voyages, near assassinations, awkward diplomatic marriages, and letters from his mother that said absolutely nothing supportive unless someone had just died. If Bertie was the black sheep and Arthur was the golden child, Alfred was the middle sock. Reliable, functional, absolutely not discussed unless required. So unfurl the royal standard, pack your sea legs, and prepare for a salty, snub-filled saga of royal correspondence. Because this is the tale of Prince Alfred and Queen Victoria's coldest letters at sea. The spare son gets a ship. Alfred was born in 1844, Victoria's second son and third child. Whereas Bertie was under constant scrutiny and pressure to live up to Prince Albert, Alfred was gently handed a telescope and told to sail away quietly. He entered the Royal Navy at just 12 years old, and from then on his life became a constant stream of foreign postings, naval discipline, occasional cannon fire, and writing long letters to his mother about how he still existed. Queen Victoria's responses were minimal. She'd write things like, "It is good that you are behaving. Continue to do so." If he mentioned loneliness, homesickness, injury, such things build character. So warm, so maternal, so absolutely nothing like chicken soup. Being useful never earns love. Alfred worked. He was competent. He didn't cause scandal. He didn't get caught with actresses. He didn't gamble excessively. He even learned 7 languages. But the reward? Crickets from Windsor. Meanwhile, his mother's letters to Bertie were filled with rage. To Arthur, praise. To Helena and Beatrice, emotional dependency. To Alfred, remember your position and do not overstep it. Imagine being the only child who doesn't mess up and getting less mail than the one who set half of Europe on fire socially. Alfred was basically Victorian WhatsApp blue-ticked by his own mother. The shooting incident that made her notice. Now let's talk about 1868, when Alfred is touring Australia and someone literally shoots him. The nation panics, papers scream, people send telegrams of concern. Queen Victoria finally shows a flicker of attention. She writes, "This incident has caused me distress. You must take greater care." Imagine surviving an assassination attempt and getting told off for not ducking properly. To her diary, she writes more emotionally, but to Alfred, the vibes are, glad you're not dead, don't be dramatic. Love, Mum. The marriage letters. Russia, really? Alfred makes another bold move in 1874. He marries Grand Duchess Maria Alexandrovna of Russia, daughter of Tsar Alexander II. A powerful match, yes, but also deeply inconvenient. Queen Victoria hated the Romanovs. Too proud, too cold, too not British. Her letters to Alfred at the time read like HR memos. It is vital your wife understand she is not to take precedence over your sisters. There must be no Russianizing of the court. Maria, naturally, is furious. Alfred stuck in the middle again. His letters try to keep the peace. Dearest Mama, Maria wishes to assure you she respects your position. Victoria, then she will sit where I tell her. Eventually, Alfred gets his own little court in Coburg, a duchy, a title, a castle, far, far away from Windsor. And still, the letters stay lukewarm. The Duke who ruled quietly and was still ignored. In 1893, Alfred becomes Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. He actually does pretty well. He governs, modernizes the region, promotes culture, even survives not being Bertie for an entire lifetime. But tragedy strikes again. His only son, another Alfred, dies young, under mysterious and tragic circumstances, likely suicide. The grief crushes Alfred, and Queen Victoria, she writes, I am saddened for you, but you must carry on with dignity. Again, no comfort, no softness, just duty and instructions. This was the emotional equivalent of sending a condolence fruit basket with no card. By the time Queen Victoria dies in 1901, Alfred is already physically and emotionally exhausted. He dies a year later, in 1902, largely forgotten by the British public and buried far from the pomp of London. What survives are his letters, formal, loyal, occasionally pleading, always second tier. And what they show is heartbreaking. A son who followed every rule, never rebelled, served his country, tried to make peace, and never got even a fraction of the emotional energy Queen Victoria poured into her louder, messier children. So here's to Prince Alfred, the second son, the sailor, the steady one. He didn't scandalize, he didn't rebel, he didn't demand the spotlight. He just wrote home, served loyally, dodged bullets, and married a Tsar's daughter. And for all that, he got indifference. In the end, sometimes the greatest royal tragedy isn't rebellion, it's being completely overlooked. So next time someone says, at least you're not the black sheep, remind them, even the navy blue sheep deserves a little love. You're watching Past People, where even the forgotten royals get their letters answered. Eventually. Prince Arthur and Queen Victoria, the golden boy who could do no wrong, aka Mummy's favourite soldier. Welcome back to Past People, where royal children are either wildly overpraised or ruthlessly roasted. And today's subject? Prince Arthur, Queen Victoria's third son and her absolute favourite. Arthur was the one child who could apparently do no wrong. Where Bertie was scolded, Alfred was ignored, and Leopold was smothered, Arthur was praised to the heavens in letter after letter. Why? Because he was exactly what Victoria wanted in a son. Disciplined, military-minded, dutiful, and blessedly unscandalous. This is the story of Arthur's letters with Queen Victoria, the polite, slightly smug correspondence of the son who was basically the Victorian equivalent of a teacher's pet. Born to be a soldier. Prince Arthur William Patrick Albert was born in 1850, Victoria's seventh child. By this point the Queen was running out of patience and names. But Arthur, he was the golden child she didn't know she needed. Victoria's letters about him are full of shockingly warm praise. My darling Arthur is so good, so gentle, so charming. He is unlike his brother Bertie. Translation: finally, a son who won't ruin my mood. Arthur decides early on that he wants a military career, and Victoria is delighted. She loved the army, uniforms, and the concept of duty. Plus, a son who's too busy drilling soldiers has no time for theatre scandals or actresses. Mummy's military obsession. Arthur joins the army at just 16. Most kids at that age are sulking in the corner. Arthur's out here polishing sabres and writing home like, "Dearest Mama, the drills go well. I am proud to serve." Victoria writes back, "My precious darling, you bring honour to your father's memory." She compares him endlessly to Prince Albert, which is basically the ultimate royal compliment. Meanwhile, poor Bertie, future Edward VII, is probably reading these letters like, "Cool, love that for him. Guess I'll go be scolded again." The Canadian chapter. One of Arthur's most interesting gigs was as Governor-General of Canada in the 1870s and 1880s. Now, Victoria's letters during this period are fascinating because they combine motherly pride with micromanagement. Be sure you are properly dressed. Do not allow the Canadians to think you are informal. Do not eat too quickly at public banquets. And remember, the French Canadians require careful handling, but do not over-smile. Arthur, ever the diplomat, responds with politeness and updates about ceremonies, ice skating, and generally not causing scandals. He quickly becomes popular in Canada, partly because he was charming and partly because he wasn't a nightmare like some of his siblings. The letters of a mother's pride. The letters between Victoria and Arthur are unusually affectionate for a woman who could scold someone for breathing incorrectly. She writes things like, "You are my greatest comfort, Arthur. Your conduct pleases me more than words can say." Imagine Bertie reading that, crying in his cigar. Arthur is also one of the few kids who actually writes back promptly. He's respectful, measured, and gives her all the updates she craves. No drama, no gossip, no emotional meltdowns. It's honestly a little boring. But for Queen Victoria, boring meant safe. The perfect son gets a life. Arthur eventually marries Princess Louise Margaret of Prussia, a neat, sensible match that Victoria fully approves of. No scandals, no awkward dowries, no actress mistresses. Victoria writes, "I am so pleased you have chosen wisely. Your bride is most proper." Arthur? Probably just relieved that his wedding didn't cause a single headline. His marriage is happy enough. He has 3 kids, he continues his military career, he rises to the rank of field marshal, he sits on councils, he does everything right. He's basically the IKEA instruction manual of royal sons. Functional, sturdy, nothing missing. The Golden Legacy. After Queen Victoria's death in 1901, Arthur continues his public service under Edward VII and George V. He remains one of the most respected royals of his generation. He lives a long life, dying in 1942 at the age of 91, making him one of the longest-lived of Victoria's children. And what do his letters tell us? That sometimes the quiet, reliable child gets the least dramatic story, but maybe the happiest one. Arthur's correspondence shows a man who knew his place, did his job, and kept both the monarchy and his mother proud. Bertie, still fuming in the afterlife. So here's to Prince Arthur, Queen Victoria's golden boy, the military prince, and the rare royal child who didn't require constant crisis management. He wrote polite letters, he avoided drama, he made Canada love him, and he somehow lived to 91 despite being born into a family that thrived on stress. Sometimes the quiet ones really do win. You're watching Past People. Until next time, write your mum a letter, but maybe don't set the bar this high. Prince Leopold and Queen Victoria, the sickly son and the smothering letters, aka you're my favourite but don't enjoy it too much. Welcome back to Past People, where royal sons are either overhyped, overlooked, or emotionally suffocated under 10 layers of letter writing. Today's tragic favourite, Prince Leopold, Queen Victoria's youngest son. Brilliant brain box, and the one who spent his whole short life trying to live normally while everyone wrapped him in metaphorical and literal bubble wrap. Leopold was born with haemophilia, which, in the 19th century, basically meant don't fall, don't run, and definitely don't sneeze near anything sharp. But beyond his fragile health, he was also Queen Victoria's most intellectually gifted child, the only one brave enough to push back against her guilt-tripped correspondence, and a man who wanted more than the role of sickly prince on standby. This is the story of their correspondence, closeness, and coded control. So warm up your wrist for dictation and prepare your heart for haemophilia-era heartbreak. It's Leopold and Victoria, in full Gothic family drama mode. A sickly start and a favourite is born. Leopold was born in 1853, Victoria's 8th child and 4th son, and from the start something was different. His birth was difficult, his bruising slow to heal. Eventually, doctors confirmed it. Haemophilia, the royal family's hereditary curse. Victoria was devastated, but also bonded. She writes, "My darling boy is so delicate, so brave, he must always be protected." Leopold, meanwhile, just wanted to be a normal child, but even tree climbing was banned, play was monitored, and letters from Mummy, constant. Victoria would write, "Have you been careful with your step today? Are you resting? You must not overexert your mind either." Overexert your mind? He's reading Plato for fun. Already, Leopold starts to feel the contradiction of being both favourite child and prisoner of love. You can have a tutor, but not a life. As Leopold grows older, it becomes obvious he's different from his brothers. He's clever, thoughtful, sensitive, passionate about philosophy, literature, social reform, and very much not interested in military parades or shooting parties. He begs to go to Oxford. Queen Victoria resists. She writes, "You will be hurt, you will be mocked, you will not be able to keep up." Leopold responds, "And if I do not go, I shall wither from lack of stimulation." Eventually, she gives in, reluctantly, and guess what? He thrives. He writes long, passionate letters about lectures and ideas and finally feeling like himself. But the letters from Victoria still include, "You are not to overdo it. Do not forget your role. You are still my child first." Let's be honest. If Queen Victoria had invented the concept of emotional curfews, she would have set his at 4:30 p.m. and sent a nurse to enforce it. The marriage debate. You can't, but also don't die alone. Leopold eventually starts writing about marriage. Yes, that terrifying concept where he might become someone else's priority. Victoria panics. She writes, "You are too unwell to be a husband. What if you father children? What if she leaves you when you bleed?" So supportive, so encouraging. But Leopold pushes back. "I want companionship. I want family. I do not wish to die a lonely prince with no cause." Eventually, Victoria relents, sort of, and he marries Princess Helena of Waldeck and Pyrmont, a bright, kind woman who understands exactly what she's signing up for. Victoria warms to her eventually, mostly because Helena never challenges her dominance. The politics, the pain, and the push for purpose. While many of Victoria's children coasted on titles, Leopold actually worked. He was a trustee of the British Museum, a supporter of working-class education, a public speaker, a genuinely passionate reformer. But every time he tries to take on more public roles, Victoria writes, But what of your health, darling? What if you collapse at a meeting? Must you do quite so much? And when he mentions travel, particularly to the south of France, for his health, not alone, not without constant chaperoning, not somewhere without English doctors, and remember, I worry every time you leave me, so you can go anywhere, but only if your mother comes too. Lovely. Leopold's tone in letters begins to shift. He writes, I wish to be more than your child. I wish to be a man. It's the quietest rebellion in a lifetime of gentle captivity. The fall that ended everything. In 1884, while travelling in Cannes, Leopold slips and falls. A minor injury for most people, but not for a man with haemophilia. He suffers internal bleeding and dies shortly after at just 30 years old. The royal court is stunned. The nation mourns quietly. Queen Victoria, crushed. She writes, My darling, precious Leopold, the only one who truly understood me. I shall never cease to miss your sweet smile and gentle wisdom. She wears black for him, as always, mourns intensely, and retroactively declares him her most brilliant son. It's tragic, but also galling, because when he was alive, she spent half her letters telling him not to want too much. The letters that linger. The letters between Leopold and Queen Victoria show something few other royal relationships did: actual emotional nuance. He loved her, she loved him, but her love smothered and his life shrank under it. He wasn't rebellious, he wasn't scandalous, he was kind, thoughtful, clever. And he wanted the same thing anyone else did. To be himself, not a walking medical file with a royal title. His letters remain, full of beauty, sadness, and the quiet ache of someone who deserved more. So here's to Prince Leopold, Queen Victoria's favourite son, her intellectual match, and the child she loves so much she almost never let go. He didn't break the monarchy, he didn't scandalise the press, he didn't rage, he just asked, again and again, for a little more room to live. And in the end, he remains a reminder that even royalty needs space to grow, and a bit less mum in the mailbox. Until next time, you're watching Past People. Please write to your parents, but maybe set boundaries.